Sophia worked tirelessly in her small, nestled at the corner of a bustling street. The aroma of fresh coffee greeted her each morning as she opened the doors. Customers often came for her warm smile and the comforting environment she created. On a gloomy Monday afternoon, dark clouds loomed overhead. Sophia noticed the sudden downpour, rain pelting against the windows. A man rushed inside, water dripping from his coat and hair. "Welcome," Sophia said with a kind smile, handing him a napkin. "Thank you," the man replied, shaking off the rain and looking around. Sophia noticed his reserved demeanor, but his eyes were warm and observant. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" she asked, breaking the silence. He nodded, offering a small smile. "Yes, please, black, no sugar." Sophia quickly prepared the coffee, her movements swift and practiced. As she placed the cup in front of him, she said, "Perfect day for coffee, isn't it?" He chuckled softly. "Or a terrible day, to forget an umbrella." The sound of his laughter made Sophia smile. "It happens to the best of us." Their conversation flowed naturally, despite the initial awkwardness. He introduced himself as Daniel, an architect working on a new project nearby. Sophia shared a little about herself, mentioning her dream of running the. The rain continued to pour, but neither of them seemed to mind. For a moment, it felt as though the world outside had disappeared. As the rain eased, Daniel checked his watch and realized he needed to leave. "Thank you for the coffee," he said sincerely. "I'll definitely come back." "I'll be here," Sophia replied, watching him step out into the drizzle. She couldn't help but wonder if their paths would cross again, or if this was goodbye. A week later, Sophia attended a local charity event to support a cause close to her heart. The event was bustling with people, filled with laughter and cheerful music. She stood at a booth, offering free coffee samples to attract donations for the community center. As she handed a cup to a passerby, she noticed a familiar figure in the crowd. It was Daniel, looking relaxed and carrying a clipboard for volunteers. Their eyes met, and a smile spread across his face as he walked over. "Fancy seeing you here," Daniel said warmly, his voice cutting through the noise. Sophia laughed softly. "I could say the same. Are you volunteering today?" "Yes," Daniel replied, gesturing to the clipboard, helping with organizing donations. "That's wonderful," Sophia said, admiring his dedication to the cause. They fell into an easy conversation, discussing their shared love for community work. Daniel was impressed by Sophia's passion and her stories of supporting local projects. As the day went on, they found themselves spending more time together at the event. From setting up tables to greeting visitors, their teamwork felt natural and seamless. At one point, Daniel handed Sophia a cup of water and said, "You've been working non-stop." Sophia smiled gratefully. "Thank you. It's a busy day, but it's worth it." By the evening, as the event was winding down, Daniel hesitated before speaking. "I really enjoyed today," he said. "Would you like to keep in touch?" Sophia's heart skipped a beat, but she nodded calmly. "I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers, a small but significant step forward. As Daniel left, Sophia couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. For Daniel, the encounter made him realize how much he looked forward to seeing her again. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and Daniel began spending more time together. They met at parks, strolled through markets, and explored hidden corners of the city. One afternoon, they sat on a bench by the river, watching the sunlight dance on the water. Sophia turned to Daniel and said, "Running the has been so challenging lately." Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with concern. "What's been the hardest part?" he asked. She sighed, keeping it open during tough months. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm barely holding on." Daniel nodded. "I understand. My career hasn't been smooth either." Sophia looked surprised. "You always seem so confident and put together." He gave a small laugh. "Appearances can be deceiving. I've been questioning if I chose the right path." They shared a moment of quiet, both reflecting on their struggles. "But," Daniel added, his voice firm, "it helps to have someone to talk to." Sophia smiled softly. "It does. I'm glad we met." Their conversations grew deeper, as they shared their dreams and fears. Daniel told Sophia about his dream, to design a building that inspired people. Sophia shared her vision of the becoming a gathering place for the community. "Your dream is beautiful," Daniel said. "I'd love to see it come true." Sophia felt her heart warm at his words. "I think the same about yours." As the weeks passed, their bond deepened, and they became each other's source of strength. Through shared laughter and late-night talks, their friendship blossomed into something more. Though neither spoke the words aloud yet, their feelings for each other grew stronger. For both Sophia and Daniel, life started to feel a little brighter. The peaceful days didn't last long for Sophia. A new opened just across the street. The place was modern and flashy, quickly attracting many of Sophia's customers. Sophia stood by her window, watching as people walked into the rival. Her heart sank as she counted fewer and fewer customers entering her own shop. One day, as she was cleaning the counter, a familiar voice caught her attention. "Hello, Sophia," said a confident woman, with a sharp smile. Sophia turned to see Victoria, the owner of the new. "I thought I'd stop by to see what I'm up against," Victoria said. Sophia forced a polite smile. "Well, I hope you like what you see." Victoria chuckled. "Oh, I do, but I wonder how long you'll last." Sophia felt her chest tighten, but kept her composure. Later that evening, Sophia shared her worries with Daniel over a cup of tea. "Victorious is taking all my customers," Sophia said, her voice heavy with frustration. Daniel hesitated, then admitted, "Victoria and I used to be together." Sophia looked at him, surprised. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't think it mattered," Daniel replied, though he avoided her eyes. The next day, Sophia overheard Victoria talking to a mutual supplier. "She's struggling to keep up," Victoria said, loud enough for Sophia to hear. "Maybe it's time for her to close shop." The words felt like a punch to Sophia's heart. As days passed, Sophia noticed Daniel becoming more distant. Whenever Victoria's name came up, he seemed uneasy. Sophia began to wonder if Victoria was trying to come between them. Despite the challenges, Sophia refused to give up on her or her relationship. She resolved to confront both Victoria and the doubts growing in her heart. The days grew heavier for Sophia. Doubts began to cloud her thoughts. Victoria's words echoed in her mind. "Are you sure Daniel has truly moved on?" Sophia tried to shake off the unease, but it lingered like a shadow. One evening, Victoria visited her, her tone as sharp as ever. "I saw Daniel yesterday," Victoria said, her voice casual but pointed. "He looked happy. It reminded me of old times." Sophia's heart clenched. She kept her voice steady. "Daniel and I are building something new. The past doesn't matter. Victoria smirked. Let's hope he feels the same. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. Victoria's words haunted her. The next day, she decided to confront Daniel. Her emotions bubbled over. Daniel, Sophia began, her voice trembling. Do you still have feelings for Victoria? Daniel's eyes widened in shock. Where is this coming from? She said you seemed happy with her. Sophia blurted out, tears in her eyes. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Sophia, that's not true. But why didn't you tell me you met her? Sophia asked, her voice cracking. Because it didn't mean anything. Daniel's tone grew defensive. Sophia looked away, her trust wavering. I don't know if I can believe that. Daniel stepped back, his face pained. Do you even trust me, Sophia? Her silence spoke volumes. Daniel's voice softened but was filled with hurt. I thought we were building something real. His words cut deep into her heart. Sophia whispered, I thought so too. The room fell silent, the weight of unspoken fears filling the space. For the first time, Sophia felt the fragility of their growing bond. Daniel grabbed his coat and left, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts. Tears streamed down her face as she replayed the argument in her mind. Was Victoria right? Had she been blind to the truth? Or had she allowed her insecurities to ruin something beautiful? As the night deepened, Sophia realized she had to make a choice. Would she fight for their love, or let it slip away? The days following their argument were heavy with silence. Sophia and Daniel avoided each other, each retreating into their own world. Sophia decided to focus on her, pouring all her energy into work. She started new promotions, redesigned the menu, and redecorated. Her employees noticed her determination, but they also saw the sadness in her eyes. Late at night, when the was empty, Sophia would sit and think about Daniel. Was he thinking of her too, or had he moved on completely? Meanwhile, Daniel buried himself in his architecture work. He took on a large, demanding project, designing a community center. His colleagues admired his focus, but they didn't see his inner turmoil. Every detail of the project was an attempt to escape his thoughts. Yet, memories of Sophia crept in, no matter how hard he worked. He remembered her laughter, the way she believed in him. But now those moments felt like they belonged to someone else. One afternoon, Sophia sat in her, staring at the empty seat across from her. The had become busier, but she felt lonelier than ever. She opened her notebook and began writing down her thoughts. Dear Daniel, she wrote, but then stopped, unsure of the words. At the same time, Daniel walked past he paused, his heart aching. From the sidewalk, he could see her, had bent over her notebook. He wanted to go in, to talk to her, but fear held him back. The distance between them felt vast, even though they were only steps apart. Days turned into weeks, and neither made a move. Sophia's flourished, but her heart remained heavy. Daniel's project neared completion, but he felt no satisfaction. Both carried the weight of their choices, wondering if it was too late. In their separate worlds, they longed for what they once had. But the question lingered, could they find their way back to each other? One quiet morning, Sophia sat in her mind filled with unanswered questions. Mia, a close friend and loyal customer, noticed her troubled expression. Are you okay? Mia asked, sitting down across from her. Sophia hesitated, then confessed, I can't stop thinking about Daniel. Mia's eyes softened. You know he still cares about you, right? Sophia looked up, her heart racing. How do you know that? He talks about you, Mia said gently, more than he realizes. Sophia's hands trembled. Does he blame me? Mia shook her head. He wishes he had told you how he felt. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his apartment, staring at the blueprint on his desk. The lines and shapes blurred together, his mind elsewhere. He thought about their last conversation, regretting how he had handled it. I should have told her the truth, he murmured to himself. But the fear of being misunderstood had kept him silent. Sophia closed the early that evening, Mia's words echoing in her mind. As she walked home, she realized how much her insecurities had influenced her. She remembered the way Daniel looked at her, full of kindness and unspoken words. Daniel, too, couldn't focus on work. He stood on his balcony, deep in thought. I have to make things right, he whispered into the night air. That night, both Sophia and Daniel lay awake in their separate beds. Their hearts were heavy, but there was a glimmer of hope. Sophia picked up her phone, her fingers hovering over Daniel's number. At the same time, Daniel opened his laptop, writing a message he might never send. Neither knew what the other was thinking, but both longed for reconciliation. The realization hit them, they couldn't keep running forever. As the clock struck midnight, their paths were about to cross once more. The next morning, Sophia stood outside the construction site, coffee in hand. Her heart raced as she watched workers moving about, busy with their tasks. She spotted Daniel, standing by a table, covered with blueprints and sketches. Summoning her courage, she stepped forward, her footsteps echoing on the gravel. Daniel looked up, surprise flashing in his eyes, as he saw her approach. Sophia, he said, his voice tinged with hesitation. What are you doing here? She offered a small smile and handed him the coffee. I came to talk, and to apologize. Daniel hesitated, then took the cup, his fingers brushing against hers briefly. Apologize, he asked, his brow furrowed. For what? For not trusting you, Sophia admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I let my insecurities cloud my judgment, and pushed you away. Daniel looked at her, his expression softening. I wasn't exactly perfect either. I should have been more open, more honest about how I felt. Sophia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I missed you, Daniel. His gaze met hers, a small smile playing on his lips. I missed you too. They stood there in silence, the noise of the site fading into the background. Do you think we can start over? Sophia asked, hope flickering in her voice. Daniel stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. I think we can do better than that. A tear rolled down her cheek, but this time, it was a tear of relief and happiness. We'll take it one step at a time, he said. No more misunderstandings. Sophia nodded, her smile growing, and no more doubts. As they stood there, a gentle breeze carried away the weight of their past. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face it together. The morning sunlight streamed into Sophia's, casting a warm glow on the wooden tables. Sophia stood behind the counter, scribbling ideas in her notebook. Daniel entered, carrying a stack of flyers. Guess what I've got? He asked, smiling. She glanced up, curious. What is it? He placed the flyers on the counter. Neighborhood Festival, he announced. It's time to bring everyone together. Sophia's eyes lit up. That sounds perfect. It could help the community. Exactly, Daniel agreed. I've already spoken to a few local businesses. They're on board. They spent the next few hours brainstorming ideas, jotting down plans and themes. We'll need decorations, activities, and a lot of publicity, Sophia said. Daniel nodded. Leave the logistics to me. You focus on making the stand out. Over the following days, Sophia revamped her, adding new furniture and a fresh coat of paint. Daniel helped with the heavy lifting, making sure every detail was perfect. New menu items? Daniel asked as he hung string lights around the entrance. Sophia laughed. Of course, I'm thinking specialty drinks for the festival. By the time the festival day arrived, the looked better than ever. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries filled the air. Crowds gathered enjoying live music, games, and delicious food from local vendors. Sophia looked around, feeling a sense of pride. Her was bustling with happy customers. Daniel approached her, holding 2 cups of coffee. To us, he said, handing her one. To us, she echoed, smiling as their cups clinked. We make a great team. As the festival ended, they stood together, watching the twinkling lights. Thank you, Daniel, Sophia said softly, for believing in me and the. He smiled, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Always. The night felt magical, filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a brighter future. The morning after the festival, Sophia stood in front of her, smiling. The sign was shining bright, and the was filled with new customers. Look at this, she said to Daniel, pointing at the crowd. Daniel grinned, placing a hand on her shoulder. You did it, Sophia. It's all thanks to you. Sophia felt a surge of pride. The festival really brought everyone together. I think it's more than just the festival, Daniel said. I think it's because we did it together. Sophia looked at him, her heart swelling with love. You're right, we make a great team. Later that day, the received an unexpected surprise. A local newspaper ran a story about the success of the festival. The is booming, Sophia whispered to Daniel, her eyes wide with disbelief. Daniel hugged her, lifting her slightly off the ground. You deserve every bit of this success. As the days passed, the continued to thrive. Sophia worked hard, pouring her heart into every cup of coffee. Daniel's architecture project was also gaining recognition, with his design being praised in industry circles. They both realized how far they had come, not just as individuals, but as a couple. You know, I never thought I'd get to this point, Sophia said one evening as they sat together in the. Daniel smiled, taking her hand. Me neither, but I'm glad we did, together. Sophia looked around the sound of happy chatter filling the air. The warmth of the energy of the community, it all felt like a dream come true. I think this is just the beginning, Daniel said, his voice filled with hope. Sophia nodded, leaning against him. Together, we can do anything. As they shared a quiet moment, they both knew that the future was bright. With their love and their partnership, they could face whatever came next. And in that moment, they knew they had found their happy life. A few weeks after the festival, Sophia and Daniel found themselves spending more time together. One morning, they sat in the, enjoying their usual breakfast, a warm cup of coffee and freshly baked croissants. You know, Sophia said, I think we should make this a tradition. Daniel raised an eyebrow. A breakfast date every morning? Sophia nodded, her eyes twinkling with excitement. It's the best part of my day. I thought the best part of your day was seeing me walk in, Daniel teased. Sophia laughed, shaking her head. Well, I can't deny that, but I also love our quiet mornings. Daniel leaned forward, taking her hand. I think I'm falling for you all over again. Sophia smiled softly. Me too, every day feels new with you. Later that day, Daniel surprised her by bringing a bouquet of flowers to the. I couldn't wait for our usual dinner date, he said, handing her the bright arrangement. Sophia gasped in surprise. These are beautiful. You didn't have to. But I wanted to, Daniel said, grinning, just to remind you how much you mean to me. She blushed, feeling her heart flutter. You're too sweet, Daniel. Later that evening, they walked through the park, hand in hand, the evening sky painted in hues of pink and orange. Sophia nudged Daniel playfully. You know, I've been thinking. Daniel smiled, already sensing where this was going. Oh, should I be worried? Sophia rolled her eyes. No, nothing serious. I was just wondering, what if we took a trip together? Daniel's eyes lit up. A trip? That sounds perfect. Where do you want to go? Sophia thought for a moment, a mischievous smile on her face. How about somewhere that's just us? Daniel laughed, squeezing her hand. I like the sound of that. Let's go. As they continued their walk, they chatted about everything. Their favorite places, their dreams, and the little things that made them laugh. Sophia teased him about his terrible dance moves, and Daniel teased her about her obsession with coffee. You know, you should really try a new drink once in a while, Daniel said, mocking her usual order. Sophia stuck out her tongue. No way, I'm loyal to my coffee. Loyalty is good, but don't you think it's time for a change? He teased. Sophia laughed and shook her head. You'll have to drag me away from my coffee to get me to change. They both laughed, their voices mixing in the air, filling the park with warmth. As they reached the end of the park, Daniel stopped, turning to face Sophia with a serious expression. Sophia, he said softly, I just want you to know, I'm so happy with you every day. I feel luckier to have you. Sophia smiled, her heart swelling with affection. I feel the same way, Daniel. You're everything I never knew I needed. Without saying another word, Daniel pulled her into a warm embrace, holding her close as the evening stars began to shine. In that moment, the world seemed perfect, just the two of them, together, forever.